From echoing footsteps to mirrors that watch you back, these aren't just ghost stories. They're chilling truths carved into forgotten walls across the UK, where 13 real haunted houses hide secrets too dark to ever rest. 1. Tredegar House. In Newport, Wales, not far from the modern bustle of city life, stands Tredegar House, a grand 17th century mansion that once echoed with laughter, secrets, and power. Built by the formidable Morgan family, one of the most influential dynasties in Welsh history, the house now stands serene, its manicured gardens and oak-paneled halls open to the public. But for those who stay after dark, the silence of Tredegar is far from peaceful. They speak in hushed tones about her, the Lady in Black. She has no name in official records, but her presence has lingered for centuries. She's seen drifting silently at the top of the grand staircase, or standing still in the shadowy corners of the drawing room. Her eyes, they say, are sorrowful, empty, lost. No one knows for certain who she was. Some believe she was a governess dismissed in disgrace. Others say she was a young noblewoman promised in marriage to one of the Morgans, only to be cast aside when her reputation was compromised. Heartbroken, she vanished one winter's night. Her body was found days later, face down, in the lake behind the house. Her black velvet dress weighed heavy with water and secrets. Over the years, dozens of visitors, from school children to historians, have spoken of strange chills, phantom footsteps, and the overwhelming sense that someone is standing just behind them. Children have pointed to old portraits whispering, "That's the sad lady," though no one ever told them her story. There is one room on the west side of the house, always locked, always cold. Staff claim it's unsafe for visitors. Some believe it's where the Lady in Black last slept. Others say she never truly left. Even the animals seem uneasy. Dogs refuse to enter certain rooms, and cats hiss toward empty corners where no one stands. Night guards have reported cold drafts passing through walls, and once, a security camera caught a fleeting shadow crossing a dim corridor, vanishing without a trace. What is certain is this: Tredegar House may be rich in history, but some stories refuse to stay buried, especially the ones still searching for justice or vengeance. If you ever visit Tredegar House, beware the Lady in Black, for she watches, waits, and remembers. And in the quiet of night, her sorrow might just reach out to you. 2. Old Gorhambury House. Hidden among the tangled woods and quiet ruins of Hertfordshire lies old Gorhambury House, now little more than crumbling stone walls and ivy-covered archways. But in the late 16th century, it was a palace of ideas, the home of Sir Francis Bacon, one of the greatest minds of his age. Philosopher, scientist, politician, visionary, and some whisper, practitioner of dark arts. Bacon was obsessed with knowledge, not just scientific, but mystical. He believed that understanding the secrets of nature would bring humanity closer to perfection, and he was willing to go to any lengths. Journals discovered years later suggest he experimented on animals, and perhaps even on human cadavers. One chilling note reads, "Through cold, flesh reveals time." One winter morning, Bacon decided to test the preservation properties of snow. He purchased a chicken from a nearby farm, walked into the woods near his estate, and stuffed it with snow by hand. He caught pneumonia and died not long after. But the house did not fall silent. Locals began to report strange noises echoing from the ruins, whispering in Latin, or the clatter of boots on stone floors that no longer existed. A cloaked figure was seen walking through the trees, sometimes solid, sometimes mist, Dogs refused to go near. Photographs taken in the early 20th century show shadowy forms that defy explanation. The most unsettling tale comes from a woman who claimed to have wandered into the ruins and come face to face with a man in Tudor robes. He looked at her, eyes burning with urgency, and whispered, "Do not open the vault." She fled. The vault, if it exists, has never been found. Some believe Bacon's final experiment went horribly wrong, that he tore open a door between realms not meant to meet. Others say he still walks the grounds, trapped in the very cycle of death and discovery he tried to master. And if you listen carefully, on a frosty morning, when the air is still, you just might hear the sound of snow crunching beneath ghostly feet. 3. The Red House. The Red House in Bexley Heath was built to be a dream. Commissioned and designed by William Morris in 1859, the famous designer and founder of the arts and crafts movement, the house was a radical statement: beauty in simplicity, craftsmanship over industrial ugliness. To most visitors today, it's a charming relic of Victorian idealism. But if walls could speak, the Red House might whisper something darker. After Morris's death, a series of unpublished letters and diary entries were discovered, some of them deeply unsettling. In one, he describes vivid dreams, geometric patterns that moved and pulsed, forming doors that opened into impossible rooms. He wrote of a presence that stood at the threshold, waiting, watching. The pattern, he wrote, knows me. It grows when I sleep. Staff have long reported odd disturbances, doors opening without explanation, heavy footsteps on the upper floor when no one is there, and cold spots in the dining room, especially near a particular stained glass window designed by Morris himself. One former guide claimed she heard music playing from the drawing room, but the room was empty and the old gramophone unplugged. There is one hallway, lined with Morris's wallpaper design, known as trellis, that has become the focus of strange activity. Visitors often pause, disoriented, claiming the pattern seems to shift when viewed out of the corner of their eye. One woman fainted, later saying she had seen the wallpaper open. In 2016, a paranormal investigator spent the night in the house. His footage, never officially released, allegedly captured an indistinct shape crawling across the ceiling against the laws of gravity. Was Morris simply an artist ahead of his time, or did he, in his obsession with beauty and order, tap into something ancient, something hidden in symmetry? The Red House was meant to be a sanctuary, but perhaps it's become a prison for a mind or a soul. 4. Spring Hill House. Nestled in the Emerald Hills of Northern Ireland stands Spring Hill House, a picturesque 17th century manor near Moneymore. Today, it's known for its elegant gardens and charming interiors. But those who have stayed overnight speak of something else entirely, a sorrow that clings to the very stone, a sadness that walks. The ghost of Spring Hill has a name: Olivia Lennox Conyngham. She was the lady of the house in the early 19th century, married to George Lennox Conyngham, a respected magistrate. But respect does not make a man kind. Diaries and letters paint a picture of a volatile relationship. George struggled with deep depression, erratic behavior, and violence. One stormy night, George locked himself in the study. Hours later, a single gunshot echoed through the halls. Olivia was the first to find him. He had taken his own life, leaving behind only a cryptic note: "Forgive me, but the house is no longer safe." After George's death, Olivia withdrew from society, wandering the corridors in silence. Servants reported hearing her speak to shadows. One maid claimed Olivia asked her, "Do you hear them too?" before vanishing into an empty room. She died in that same house, decades later, alone. But she never really left. Today, staff and visitors report flickering lights, sudden cold winds, and the eerie sound of a music box playing by itself. Most chillingly, a figure dressed in a long grey gown is often seen standing by the window of Olivia's old bedroom, staring out at the garden as if waiting for someone or something. One visitor captured a photograph of the room while on a guided tour. In the background, just near the curtains, was a translucent figure, eyes hollow, lips parted as if mid-sigh. When shown to a curator, the reply was simple. "That's Olivia. She likes the mornings." Some say she's mourning her husband. Others believe she's trapped in an endless echo of fear, a warning to all who ignore the signs of the restless dead. If you ever visit Spring Hill, remember this: silence is not always peace. Sometimes it's grief that refuses to die. 5. Sinai House. Sinai House, perched above the River Trent in Staffordshire, looks like something pulled from a medieval storybook. Timber-framed, crooked with age, wrapped in mist on cold mornings. But beneath its charm lies a hidden past, one steeped in isolation, ritual, and whispers of the unspeakable. Long before it was a private estate, Sinai served a chilling purpose, a rest home for sick and dying monks from nearby Burton Abbey. These weren't patients in the modern sense. They were, by all accounts, condemned. Victims of diseases so severe, their presence was considered dangerous to the living. They were brought here not to recover, but to wait for death. Local legend says that strange rituals took place after dark, prayers that were less about salvation and more about sealing something in. Some claim the monks were tormented by visions, plagued by hallucinations so violent they clawed at the walls, muttering in tongues long forgotten. Centuries later, the hauntings began. Visitors today report seeing robed figures moving silently through the upper corridors. Heavy footsteps echo at night, even when the house is empty. The attic, once used as a makeshift chapel, emits the faint smell of incense, despite no such substance being burned in years. The current owners once invited a team of paranormal investigators. One of them, a hardened skeptic, refused to re-enter the house after spending an hour alone upstairs. He described hearing chanting, low, rhythmic, and impossibly ancient. When asked what they were saying, he shook his head and muttered, "They weren't praying for healing." One hallway near the east wing has become notorious. People who enter often become disoriented, experiencing time lapses, nausea, and in one case, blacking out entirely. A medium who visited claimed the house is saturated with unresolved pain, and something older than pain itself. Some believe the monks were not just victims, but guardians. That Sinai House was built atop something ancient, a place where the veil between worlds grows dangerously thin. Whatever truth lies buried beneath its foundations, one thing is certain: Sinai was never a place of peace, and those who were sent there were never meant to return. Hatfield House. Hatfield House, standing proud in Hertfordshire, is one of England's most important stately homes, not just for its grandeur, but for its role in shaping the country's monarchy. It was here that a young Princess Elizabeth, future Queen Elizabeth I, first learned of her accession to the throne. But while the estate today is a marvel of Jacobean architecture and manicured perfection, there are parts of Hatfield that remain shrouded in something older, colder, unspoken. The Queen is said to have loved Hatfield dearly, Yet something about the house seems to have captured more than her memory. Over the centuries, guests and staff alike have reported sightings of a woman in regal Tudor attire, tall, poised, unmistakably royal. She glides through the long gallery, her presence marked by a sudden drop in temperature and the scent of lavender, Elizabeth's favorite fragrance. At first, many assumed these were simple echoes of history, harmless apparitions. But then came the dreams. Several visitors have reported waking in the night while staying at the estate's guest quarters, plagued by visions of fire, screaming, and a woman's voice commanding, "Tell them I am watching." One historian, staying overnight while researching Elizabeth's letters, claimed to hear a knock at the door around 3 a.m. No one was there, but across the room, a candle had been lit, on its own. There is one room in particular, the old chapel, where things grow stranger still. It was reportedly a place of worship and reflection, but visitors who enter often feel compelled to kneel, overcome by an overwhelming sense of sorrow and expectation. A psychic once described the room as resonating with unfinished judgment. Some say it is Elizabeth herself, not angry, but vigilant. Others believe another spirit walks with her, a betrayed lady-in-waiting, silenced for knowing too much. The monarchy has always carried secrets, and perhaps in Hatfield House, one of its greatest rulers is still guarding hers. 7. Middleton House Gardens. At first glance, Middleton House in Enfield is nothing more than a peaceful estate surrounded by spectacular botanical gardens, the legacy of Edward Augustus Bowles, a famed horticulturist. But the beauty of the place belies a darker undertone, especially once the sun begins to fade. Staff have spoken of strange disorientation, as if the gardens shift ever so slightly between visits. Guests frequently get lost, even though the paths are simple and well marked. Some insist they've walked in circles, only to find themselves back where they started. Yet the light, the air, the mood of the garden feels completely different. Local folklore tells of a young boy, a servant, who disappeared in the early 1900s after venturing into the gardens at dusk. His body was never found. A single shoe was discovered near the lily pond, covered in frost, even though it was midsummer. Since then, sightings have occurred, a pale child seen running between hedges, only to vanish mid-step. At night, there's said to be laughter, not cruel, but distant, melancholic. And sometimes a child's voice calls out, "Are you still there?" Bowles himself documented the garden's personality in his journals. He wrote, "Sometimes I walk alone, and it feels as though the plants are leaning in, listening. Perhaps the garden grows more than just flowers. Perhaps it remembers." 8. Fidel House. Fidel House, an elegant Georgian building in Boston, Lincolnshire, was once a hub of learning and culture, visited by scientists, politicians, and intellectuals. But some knowledge comes with a price, and Fidel House seems to have retained more than just books. During World War II, the house was used as a hospital and administrative center. Many wounded soldiers passed through its halls. Not all of them survived. Since then, the library has become the heart of the hauntings. Volunteers often find books pulled from shelves in the morning. Pages flutter with no wind. One librarian swears she heard a man whispering Latin passages. When she turned, no one was there, but the book he had been reading was open on the table. Then there's the scholar, a tall, thin figure in early 19th century dress who appears near the main stairwell. His face is obscured, blurred, as if he doesn't want to be known. He carries a candle that emits no light. He never speaks, he only watches. One chilling detail unites many sightings. When the scholar appears, Time seems to stretch. Visitors feel as though hours have passed, only to discover they were missing for minutes. Some believe he's a former professor who died here during a lecture series. Others say he's something older, a guardian of forgotten knowledge, or worse, a warning. 9. Place Lenelli House. In Lenelli, South Wales, stands Place Lenelli House, an 18th century mansion with a grand staircase, creaking floorboards, and more mirrors than most homes of its time. Beautiful, yes, but those mirrors hold stories. The most persistent legend involves a woman dressed in blue velvet with long auburn hair. She appears only in reflections, never in direct sight. Guests have tried to follow her after glimpsing her in a hallway mirror, only to find the corridor empty and the air icy cold. In the 19th century, the house was a doctor's residence. One of his patients, a young woman, died mysteriously in an upstairs room. Her name was never recorded, but soon after, servants refused to sleep on that floor. They claimed she was still looking at them through any polished surface. In 2012, CCTV footage captured a mirror tipping off the wall, unprovoked, late at night. When played back frame by frame, a faint face appears behind the glass a split second before it falls. The staff have since covered many mirrors at night, a quiet act of respect or fear. Visitors today often report a strange sense of being watched by the house, and when they pass the mirrors, some flinch, unsure whether the figure inside is truly their own. 10. The Pumping House. Deep in the heart of Nottinghamshire stands the Pumping House, once a state-of-the-art Victorian waterworks facility, now a stylish event venue. But beneath the sleek renovations lies a bone-deep hum, as if the machinery never really turned off. In the 1890s, a worker, unnamed in most records, was reportedly caught and crushed beneath one of the massive pump pistons during a late-night maintenance round. His body wasn't discovered until morning. They say his ghost never clocked out. Cleaners speak of clanging metal and the smell of hot oil, even when the machines are long dormant. Doors slam with a pressure that can't be explained. One technician claims he heard heavy breathing coming from behind the old control panel. When he investigated, he found only his own reflection in the rusted brass gauge and a handprint slowly forming on the glass. There's one particular hallway near the original pump chamber where the sound of footsteps always echoes, but never matches yours. One bride during a wedding held there reportedly refused to re-enter the building after seeing a man in an old boiler suit staring at her from the stairwell. He vanished the moment she looked directly at him. The building has been restored, painted, modernized, but something inside it, industrial, eternal, is still working, and sometimes still watching. 11. Bessie Surtees House. In the heart of Newcastle, Bessie Surtees House is known for romance, the place where young Bessie defied her wealthy family and eloped with John Scott, who would later become the Lord Chancellor of England. But love stories, even beautiful ones, can leave behind strange echoes. Visitors today say the house feels alive. A presence lingers on the upper floors, especially near the window where Bessie is believed to have climbed down to freedom. Passers-by at night have reported seeing a woman's silhouette standing there, hands pressed to the glass, even when the building is locked and empty. But here's what chills the blood. She's not always alone. Several witnesses describe a second figure, darker, less distinct, lingering behind her in the room, watching silently. When questioned, staff insisted no mannequins or props were placed upstairs, and yet the images return again and again, caught in photographs or the corners of the eye. Some say it's not Bessie at all, that another woman, perhaps one who wasn't so lucky in love, took her own life in that very room after being abandoned. Her story was never recorded, her name lost, only her grief remains. Whether it's the spirit of a bold young lover or a shadow of sorrow twisted through time, the window remains, waiting. 12. Dumpreys House. Tucked into the Scottish countryside, Dumpreys House is an architectural jewel saved from ruin by King Charles III himself. But no royal hand could rescue the house from what still walks its corridors at night. Long before it was preserved, Dumpreys House belonged to the Crichton family. A young woman, possibly a distant cousin or a guest, is said to have lived there briefly in the 18th century. Her letters describe a growing sense of isolation, ignored by suitors, dismissed by family, and increasingly paranoid about a man in the mirror. Her final letter simply read, "He stands behind me when I play the piano." But no one else sees him. She died shortly after, some say by her own hand. To this day, music has been heard late at night in the drawing room, where no instruments remain. Visitors report an overwhelming sadness, and the occasional glimpse of a woman in pale blue seated at an invisible harpsichord, hands moving soundlessly. During renovations in 2008, a worker reportedly saw her standing in the far corner of the room, eyes empty, dress billowing slightly, though the windows were closed. When he turned to run, the chandelier above him swung violently, though the air was still. Dumpreys House is elegant, royal, refined, but one room remains eternally occupied, not by a queen, but by a woman long forgotten, still playing to no one. 13. Traquair House. Traquair House is the oldest continually inhabited house in Scotland, standing since 1107 and once visited by 27 monarchs. But among its many royal stories, none are more disturbing than the legend of the Bare Gates. In 1745, Charles Edward Stuart, Bonnie Prince Charlie, passed through Traquair on his way to fight for the throne. After he left, the owner closed the great gates at the rear of the estate, vowing they would never open again until a Stuart king returned. They never did. Centuries have passed, and the Bare Gates remain sealed. But the energy surrounding them is wrong. Locals refuse to touch the stone. One groundskeeper resigned after hearing footsteps circling the gates at night, even though no one was there. Just the marks left in dew, like heavy boots pacing. Inside the house, the upper floor near the gates is colder than the rest. Staff report books falling, chairs dragged overnight, and once, a man's voice whispering in a thick Highland accent, "You must not open it." One visitor, unaware of the legend, placed her hand on the iron latch for a photo. Moments later, she fainted. She awoke repeating the words, "He's still waiting," again and again. Some believe the prince's soul remains tethered here, caught between glory and exile. Others fear that something else waits beyond the gates, something that should never return. One thing is certain. At Traquair House, the past has not ended. It's only been locked in. If these stories gave you chills, subscribe to Creepy Experience, share with friends who love ghost tales, and tell us which haunted house you'd visit.